the nomination as the Republican Party's candidate in the forthcoming election to the US Senate. Mr. Hann, thank you very much for your time here on NewsHour. I just wonder what you make of that pressure that's on your party at the moment. I mean, it was expressed by one of your fellow Republicans in Minnesota, Chris Medell, yesterday when he announced he was withdrawing from his campaign to become the Republican nominee for the governor, saying that the ICE operations in your state have been an unmitigated disaster.
Well, I first of all, thank you for having me. It's good to join you again. But I think there are different opinions about what is going on here, Republicans and Democrats alike. But I will say this, it is good news to see that there is ongoing discussion between the President Trump, and the governor, Tim Walz, here in Minnesota, which, frankly, in my opinion, should have happened weeks ago. And I think it's important for your viewers, your listeners, to understand that we have 50 states across the country. We have local law enforcement conducted in every state. Every state has a governor. What's happening in Minnesota is not happening in other parts of the country. And I think that is the key thing. Why is it happening in Minnesota and not in other states? And to me, the clarity on this is that the local political leadership here in Minnesota has taken the position, they've adopted what are called sanctuary policies, where they have, in effect, said they're not going to cooperate with the federal law enforcement, the federal immigration enforcement.
And we can have a discussion about that. But in the meantime, the effect of what is happening right now is that this agency that is under your command, the Republicans' command, in the words of Chris Medell, U.S. citizens, particularly those of color, are living in fear. U.S. citizens are carrying papers to prove their citizenship. That is wrong. And he's not some sort of effete liberal. This is a man who gave legal counsel to the first ICE officer who was involved in a fatal shooting of a U.S. citizen. This is a man who has said that it is deeply troubling what is happening in your state. And that is as a result of what ICE is up to.
Well, I think it is deeply troubling. I'm not sure that I would agree with his assessment that it is the fault of the federal administration, which has been conducting efforts to find and deal with criminal, illegal aliens in this country in every state. And it is unique in Minnesota that we've had the kind of things that have happened because local Democratic politicians have intentionally chosen to not cooperate with local law enforcement and, in fact, have encouraged citizens to go out in the street to protest, to obstruct, which in itself is illegal. And
protesting
they have created
is not
the
illegal.
conditions. Well, no, protesting is not illegal, but obstructing the enforcement of law by law enforcement officers is illegal.
In which case, those people can be arrested and prosecuted. But obviously what has caused such national anguish is that two people have ended up being shot.
Yes, and that is a tragedy, I think, in both cases. And I've looked at the videos, and of course there is an investigation, and it will continue, and it will reveal, I think, the whole story as time goes on. But in both cases, these were individuals who had gone beyond mere protesting and were engaged in obstructing the activities of the federal law enforcement as they were trying to arrest criminal, illegal aliens who have committed violent crimes.
Yeah, I wonder if actually some of your language in the recent past, in fact, as recently as Saturday, before just after the shooting of Alex Pretty, went slightly beyond that. I mean, you decided in a statement to say that Renee Good, the first woman the first person to be killed, she tried to run over an ICE agent with her car. There's no proof of that.
Well, I think that, as I said, there is an investigation that's being conducted.
Well, you jumped to the conclution before that investigation has finished.
No, I wasn't jumping to the conclusion.
She tried to run him over with her car.
When I looked at the video, that's what I saw.
And lots of other people saw it differently. Well, I mean, there are two issues here. I mean, one is how ICE has behaved, but the second thing has been about the sort of language that's been used about this. And, you're calling for a reduction in temperature. You'll be aware that within a couple of hours of that shooting of Alex Pretty, there were very senior members of the Republican administration who were saying he was a terrorist bent on massacring law enforcement.
Well, and I don't know if there's any evidence of that, but what I do know is...
Well, they said it.
Well, they may have said all kinds of things, but what I do know is that if if you are a citizen, and whether it's local police or national immigration authorities, if you are in the course of your protesting, trying to impede or prevent them from doing their job, you're going to have trouble.
Well,
That's
you're
a
going to have
fact.
trouble, but you shouldn't necessarily expect to be shot in the back several times.
Well, if that's again, they're conducting an investigation to find out what happened, and I do believe that that investigation will happen, and there will be clarity brought to the circumstances of that whole thing. And any time you have a loss of life, it is tragic. There's no question about that.
Do
The
you
thing that
regret
is a
in that
problem,
case? I mean, you're saying we should wait until the outcome of the investigation. Do you think it was wrong for people like Kristi Noem, the Homeland Security Secretary, Stephen Miller, the Deputy Chief of Staff and a very senior figure in Homeland Security policy, for Greg Bovino, the Border Agency commander, to say in terms within hours, this man was a terrorist bent on mass murder, and indeed Donald Trump called him a gunman? Do you think, on reflection, that they were wrong to use that language so quickly and so intemperately?
I don't know all the things that they saw or were reacting to. It is true that this individual that was shot recently did have a gun. There's no question about that.
And he was perfectly legally
he
entitled
was
to
licensed to carry a
carry
gun,
the
which is true. But if he had withdrawn that gun, if
yes.
you are out on the street trying to prevent law enforcement from conducting their business, and you have a gun, I think that is very questionable judgment to be doing something like that. And this is where I have a problem with our local political leadership, who have been encouraging people to do those things, to not necessarily bring guns, but to obstruct, to get in the way, to go beyond mere voicing their opinion.
You've made that point. I just wonder, finally, just briefly, if you can react to one other thing that Chris Medell said, which is the reality is that national Republicans have made it nearly impossible for a Republican to win a statewide election in Minnesota, which is what you're going to try and do this year.
Well, I don't agree with him on that. And Chris Medell, I don't know him personally. I think he is he announced as a candidate for the nomination to be the Republican candidate for governor. But I don't know politically what his background is, to be honest with you. And as I said, people have all kinds of opinions on the Republican side as well as Democrat side. But I don't think it means that Republicans cannot win. We've got fraud. We've got incompetent government led by Democrats in Minnesota. It's time for a change.
David Hann, very grateful to you for your time. Thank you for joining us here on NewsHour.